Each year, the United States is struck by disasters that severely affect communities and state and local governments. Affected communities and states often need the assistance of the federal government when responding to and recovering from disasters. This assistance is available under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act. This interactive course introduces you to the Public Assistance Program. This program awards grants to assist state and local governments and certain private nonprofit entities to help with the response and recovery process.
Following a disaster, preliminary damage assessments are conducted. The governor of the affected state may request assistance from the president. If the president declares a disaster, FEMA establishes a disaster field office and relief efforts begin. One of the Public Assistance Program's first activities occurs when the state schedules an applicant's briefing. FEMA is invited to participate. In the meeting, potential applicants receive information on the Public Assistance Program. For those applicants who can't make the meeting, information is available on the Internet or by fax. Public entities that believe they are eligible for public assistance complete a Request for Public Assistance form. This form is the official notification by the applicant of an intent to apply for disaster relief through FEMA's Public Assistance Program. The applicant uses the form to provide information such as name, address, phone number, and applicant's identification number. The information from the form becomes part of an electronic case management file, which is used for tracking and updating information on the applicant. The applicant has 30 days from the date his or her county is designated as eligible for public assistance to submit the form to state officials. The state then forwards the request.
FEMA and the state work as partners to deliver the Public Assistance Program. As the grantee, the state role is as follows: providing technical support and assistance to applicants, ensuring that potential applicants are educated about the Public Assistance Program and are aware that the assistance may be available, assisting FEMA in the collection of damage information and the preparation of cost estimates, granting funds to applicants, and ensuring that the state and its sub-grantees have complied with a cost-sharing agreement, administering the grants through project monitoring, inspection, and reconciliation. The applicant, also referred to as the sub-grantee, is a state agency or local government, Indian tribe or Alaskan Native village, private nonprofit organization, or other legal entity to which public assistance funds are awarded. The applicant attends the applicant's briefing to learn about the Public Assistance Program, is responsible for providing documentation and personnel to work with FEMA and the state in the damage assessment and project application processes, is responsible for completing its recovery actions, is accountable to the state for the use of the funds provided by FEMA. At the beginning of the disaster recovery process, a Public Assistance Coordinator, or PAC, is assigned to each applicant. The PAC is a customer service manager who works with the applicant to resolve public assistance issues and ensure that the applicant's projects are processed as efficiently and expeditiously as possible. The PAC's responsibilities include meeting with the applicant to discuss the program and the applicant's specific needs, working with the applicant to develop projects, obtaining the appropriate technical assistance if the applicant requires it, ensuring that projects comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and policies, ensuring that any special considerations associated with the project are identified and reviewed, coordinating with the state as necessary to resolve problems, maintaining the case management file. Project officers and specialists are resources available to the applicant. Typically, project officers are responsible for assisting applicants with the development of projects and cost estimates. A specialist has a defined area of expertise in such areas as roads and bridges, utilities, debris removal, environmental issues, historic preservation, insurance matters, cost estimating.
After the disaster has been declared, one of the first public assistance activities to occur is the state-sponsored applicant's briefing for those municipalities with damage that may be eligible for funding under FEMA's Public Assistance Program. At this briefing, applicants receive and complete a request for public assistance form. This form is submitted to the state and forwarded to FEMA. Upon receipt of the request form, the Public Assistance Officer will determine applicant eligibility and assign a Public Assistance Coordinator, or PAC. The PAC will schedule a kickoff meeting with the applicant and the State Applicant Liaison to discuss project formulation, documentation, funding, policies, and procedures. The project worksheet must contain all pertinent project information, including the number of the disaster declaration, project description, and information on the applicant. The description of the damaged facility must include the type and function of the facility and its condition prior to the disaster. The worksheet must also furnish the exact location of the damaged facility or area. This includes latitude and longitude coordinates if available. Detailed location information is especially important if the facility is in a rural area or if the disaster has decimated existing landmarks. Location information may include a building's address, detailed directions to find a road or bridge project, and other needed data such as the names of cross streets and exact mileage distances. Damage to the facility, its features, and the items that require repair must be described in quantitative terms that include physical dimensions. The description must also provide details that relate the cause of the damage to the incident. A complete description of how the disaster caused the damage is important when considering eligibility. For example, instead of saying, "Flooding washed away a small shed," the description should read, "Floodwaters destroyed a 15-foot-high wooden storage shed with a metal roof and a base of 400 square feet." The project worksheet must describe completely the scope of the work needed to repair the damage. The scope of work must also show a direct correspondence between the cause of the damage and the repair. If work has been completed, the project worksheet must distinguish between the work that has been performed and work that is yet to be completed. Incomplete or inaccurate scopes of work impede the funding process and could possibly result in a loss of funding in an audit situation, so make sure the description in the scope of work is accurate and complete. For example, when describing the scope of work for replacing a damaged power line, instead of saying, "Replace the damaged parts in the system," the description should spell out the scope of work in more detail. Perhaps, remove and dispose of destroyed power poles and transformer. Replace 6 40-foot-high power poles and 1 kVA transformer with same. Restring all connecting wires. When completing the project worksheet, the applicant must answer yes or no to questions regarding the scope of work and special considerations, including hazard mitigation, insurance, environmental, and historical issues. If the answer is yes to any of the questions, the issues will need to be resolved prior to funding. The PAC will forward copies of the worksheets to the appropriate special consideration staff as needed. Project costs may be estimated in a number of ways. One is unit prices. A unit price is an all-inclusive estimate. That is, it will contain the cost of labor, materials, equipment, and even profit and overhead. A second way to estimate costs is through time and materials. This is done in cases of force accounting, when the work is done by the applicant using its own personnel and equipment. Another method is through contracts in which labor, equipment, and materials are provided by an outside source. These are the key items that must be included on the project worksheet, but other information may be needed for the worksheet to be complete and accurate. These may include information such as upgrades due to codes and standards. When project worksheets are complete, the applicant submits them to the Public Assistance Coordinator for review. During the project formulation process, the applicant, with help from the PAC or a specialist, will determine how damaged sites can be combined into projects before they are submitted for funding. Several methods can be used to combine damaged sites, including organizing them by type of damage, system, boundaries, or method of work. Also, during the project formulation and review process, a public assistance field employee may discover all or a portion of a scope of work that may be ineligible. When this occurs, the field employee must include a description of the ineligible work and state the reasons for the determination of ineligibility. The employee should tell the applicant that although the work appears to be ineligible, the final ruling will be made during the validation process. As the project formulation process comes to a close, the Public Assistance Coordinator reviews the worksheets to ensure eligibility, completeness, and accuracy, and makes preparations for the next phase, small project validation. An important component of the public assistance process is small project validation, which is intended to ensure that work and costs being proposed for federal assistance are complete, accurate, and eligible. Validation is also intended to ensure that special consideration issues have been identified. During recovery from a presidentially declared disaster, applicants formulate their projects using project worksheets and submit them to FEMA for review and processing. These worksheets will contain a fully described scope of work and complete and accurate cost estimates. Before funding these projects, FEMA will confirm that they are eligible and that the worksheets are complete and accurate. During the validation process, FEMA also confirms that the projects comply with all federal laws, regulations, and agency policy. For an expedited validation, the PAC and state liaison select two 20% samples from all the small projects the applicant submits within 30 days of the kickoff meeting. Two separate samples are selected so that the specialist will have a second sample to validate if the first sample does not pass validation. While the projects are selected randomly, the validation sample may include both emergency and permanent work projects. Small projects with special consideration issues will be included when selecting the sample. Whether performing an expedited validation or validating projects individually, the specialist follows the same procedures. First, the specialist contacts the applicant and arranges a time and place to conduct the validation. The specialist discusses which projects will be validated and explains the documents required for the process so the applicant can prepare. Next, the specialist visits the site and confirms that all aspects of the project description are accurate. The specialist confirms that the damage description is complete and accurate, and that the damage described in the project worksheet is eligible. The specialist will now check on eligibility of the scope of work and determine whether the scope of work is complete and accurate. Next, the specialist reviews any work that has been completed to ensure that the work is eligible and that the costs and the records for work are complete and accurate. In this same way, the specialist will review the cost estimates for work that is yet to be completed. The specialist uses the applicant's project worksheet and the validation worksheet during the process. The specialist will use information from these two worksheets to complete the project validation form. The validation worksheet and the project validation form must be completed for each validated project. The main focus during validation is on two factors, eligibility and cost. Any variances in these two factors affect the outcome of validation.